Hello, I'm Rob MacPhail, one of the careers consultants here at RGU. You're joining us for one of our In Conversation With interviews, where we're talking to different people to get their insight into what students can do to develop their employability and ultimately to achieve their career ambitions. These sessions have been organised by the Centre for Employability, which is part of the Student Life department here at the university. So for this session, I'm delighted to be joined by Sam MacNeil, who is a former student of RGU. He's now a business development manager with Peterson Energy Logistics, an international energy logistics and supply chain solutions company that's headquartered in Aberdeen. Hi, Sam. How are you doing today?
Hi, Rob. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. And thanks so much for joining us for this In Conversation With. It's great to see you. So can you just tell us first off a little bit about when you studied at RGU and what you studied?
So I studied business development, business management, and it was, I think it was in 2019, 20. Now it was just at the start of the pandemic when things were a little bit different. So that was when I was graduating. So it was a bit of a challenging time at the end, kind of working through all the different sort of ways of doing our assessments and finishing our thesis, etc. At home, it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was a challenging time. Um, and what is your current role at the moment?
I am the business development manager at Peterson.
And how did you? Can you just tell us a little bit about your kind of career path there between graduating from RGU and then getting into that role?
Sure, sure. So I graduated, obviously, like I was saying, in 2019, 20, and it was the pandemic. So things were really challenging. I was applying left, right, and center for all sorts of graduate schemes, and it was really quite challenging. I mean, I applied for a variety of different types of roles, so from BP to PwC to all the different sort of major companies. And what I found was I was getting through maybe the first initial two stages and then kind of finding it more challenging into the last stages because there's just sheer volume of people applying for these jobs. And what I would say with that is I wouldn't take it personally. I at the start probably was taking it personally when I was getting rejected, but there's a lot of things out with your control when you're applying for these jobs that have got algorithms that sort of select people at the precondition stages and things like that. So it was really challenging in that sense. So I kind of pivoted and started thinking about what sort of industry is busy just now in the pandemic. What can I do that would be different? So I found a graduate scheme with DPD, which is obviously a parcel company. I thought people are stuck at home. What's still going on? People are getting parcels delivered. I thought I'm going to give that a go. And I mean, it's still a multinational company. I still went through the same sort of process for application for that job. However, I was successful and I managed to get on that graduate scheme. So that was based in Aberdeen. I did 1 year with them where I what do you call it? I worked across their depot management program. So that was learning how to run warehouses, all the different kind of parts in it that's involved. So that would be managing staff in the warehouse or managing drivers and planning their routes. And it was a really insightful sort of experience. You were thrown into a management position very quickly and got experience that you would never normally get, I don't think, till much further on in your career. So that was a really great experience for me, but I got kind of frustrated with the graduate scheme, purely because I felt like I was a bit of a cog in the wheel, and I was working extremely hard, and it didn't matter how hard I worked, I kind of couldn't exceed the program. And coming from a sporting background, I didn't like that you didn't really get what you put in. So I actually got approached to join Peterson as a project coordinator, running some of their asset management sort of software. It was a very sort of small project about getting maintenance records into a system for their their trucks, trailers, cranes, all their sort of main equipment. So I did that for a year. And then they quickly realized, like, sorry, I should have said I played golf professionally before I was at university. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
they realized I was quite good with people and quite wanted me in front of their customers. So they moved me into a kind of customer management role for a year. So I did that, and they quickly realized that it was worthwhile. They thought, well, you're good with our customers. Why do we not get you out in front of new potential customers? So they didn't actually have a business development role in Peterson when I joined. So they made that position for me, and I've kind of been shaping it the last few years, which has come with some challenges and some great parts. And similar to DPD, throwing in at the deep end and kind of getting able to um, just trying to kind of find my feet and shape the way the company goes forward.
Yeah. Wow, what an interesting career path that you've taken there. So, and it sounds like, yeah, at the start there, maybe following university, you had to kind of show a bit of resilience, which is often the case in terms of there can be a lot of disappointment from getting rejections to applications and things like that. But then it's really interesting that you kind of made that decision to maybe change tack slightly and then go to the DPD route. And then that kind of led to something else again with you being approached. Um,
Yeah.
so I suppose what did you kind of take from that? I mean, did you have a kind of a bit of a path in mind, but then you felt it's important to be able to change from that path?
Um, well, I mean, I felt at the start I had a path in mind with logistics. I thought that's going to be a great path for me because it's always going to be growing. And growing up in Aberdeen, you always think oil and gas and things like that. It's filtering out. So I thought parcels, I thought that's growing. It's a great industry to be in. So that was kind of what led my thinking at the start. However, I realized kind of at the time, I thought, do you know what? There's a lot of opportunity still in oil and gas, and there's obviously the energy transition. And when the opportunity came up to join Peterson, I thought I'm going to give it a go. So that was really what led to that.
Yeah. So sometimes I think it's also maybe just having that flexibility and that kind of commercial awareness, that understanding maybe of the labor market as well to see where are the potential opportunities. And also to think about, we talk to students a lot about the importance of transferable skills as well. So the skills that that you've shown in other roles that you can then apply to a new roles. Is that something that you were kind of conscious of when as you were making that kind of transition?
Yeah, I guess it was. I mean, I think my skills I picked up from when I was golfing. I mean, I was looking for sponsorship and things like that all the time, and you were always kind of just about your manners. I think sport's been great to me. I mean, golf taught me the basic manners, etiquette, and things like that. And I think that's really important. And I think people really, really like that. I think that would be one thing I would really advise people to kind of be aware of when the way you speak to people and the way you come across. I think that's a really important part of my role is being able to gauge how different people react to things. So if somebody likes being straight to the point, you go straight to the point. If not, you've just got to gauge each person as they come. And I also, whilst I was golfing and whilst I was at university, I caddied at Royal Aberdeen, which was a really great experience for me because I got to meet a variety of different people whilst caddying from America and got great advice from them. I mean, I caddied for the chairman of PwC. I've caddied for some really influential people and getting to spend 4 hours with them, getting advice from them about your career path. And one thing that I quickly realized when I was doing that was that my degree was going to be the center part of that. Although you maybe don't use your degree day to day once you've graduated, it is so important for getting in the door and ticking that box of showing that you can complete something over 4 years and you can set your mind to something and get it done. That was really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we talk a lot about employability to students, and that's kind of bringing together all of those different aspects. It's about it's about your degree, it's about your academic qualifications, but it's also about all those other things. It's about your kind of your work experience that you've got. It's about your kind of people skills. It's bringing all that together into a kind of a package as to how employable that you are. Um, what would you say would be the best piece of advice that you would give to a student as they enter the job market?
Um, I think if you were to take me as the example, I was probably not the best student in the sense that I was a bit behind the curve. When I started, I obviously played golf out of school for 4 years on tour, so I was a little bit of an older student. So I always felt like I was chasing the curve whilst I was at university, and that I was like trying to catch up with people who had maybe come from school and then gone straight into university, who knew the process and were good at doing that. Where I think I was a little bit different was when we graduated and I eventually kind of caught them up by the end, was I felt like I was maybe 10 steps ahead after because I had a different background from school and I'd been out in the world. I'd played golf around the world. When I was speaking at interviews, I had something different, and I think my advice would be to try and find what your different is, because they get thousands of applications. How do you separate yourself from the rest? I mean, mine was I was a professional golfer, so that was a great talking point for me to show that I'd kind of done something different. And when they're looking at thousands of CVs, a lot of the questions I would get was the first thing, "Oh, I saw you used to play golf. What was that about?" And it's getting the spotlight on you and how you do that. So whether that's maybe being part of a club or something like that, I don't know. I don't know what that answer is for each person, but you've got to be able to separate yourself and put a bit of a spotlight on you.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And again, we I certainly talk to students a lot about, what makes you stand out from the crowd, because it is competitive out there. There are going to be lots of people going for the same job. So it's about how you can kind of stand out and make yourself a bit distinct from other candidates. And it sounds like you had a fantastic experience there that you could talk about. That can make such a difference. Um, so we've kind of spoken about your experience of searching for a job when you after you graduated. Was there anything that kind of surprised you in kind of that kind of transitional phase? Anything that
Hmm.
you hadn't quite expected?
Do you know, and I say this quite often when I'm speaking to people, when I was at university, I used to look at all these multinational companies and see their logos and see the fancy offices and all the perfect buildings and think, wow, God, I would love to work there one day. I would be amazing. They must be so well organized and so well run. And it's just not the case at all. To be quite honest with you, um it's quite crazy how operations run and what your image of the company might be to what the actual reality of what it is will be quite different, I would think. Well, from my perspective anyway. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad places to work by any stretch of imagination. It's just very different to how you imagine it.
Yeah, and sometimes I guess that can be the case. Just the reality, the kind of real world scenario is maybe not quite what a lot of students have experience of, or it's quite what they expect. So I think um, it is something to bear in mind. Absolutely. Um, just going back to when you were a student here, just to get an idea of obviously we've got the careers team here as part of the Centre for Employability, and there's different aspects to that in terms of the careers advice, the placement side of things. Um, did you have much experience of using the resource here, or using some of the online resources, the eHub that we've got, for example? Was that something you were aware of, or that you used at all?
So I actually worked for the employability team. I did the Leavers survey whilst I was working there, which was a sort of great experience again. I mean, if the to work for the universities, if you get the opportunity, I would highly recommend it. It was great getting to meet all the different careers advisors and hear about opportunities they had coming up, and if there was something, they would kind of point you in the right direction for that. I used some of the online things. I think I used like the CV builder and things like that, and getting ideas of how to write your CV. And I met with people to get my CV checked and got advice on that. But again, going back to what I'd say, there's lots of events they have on. They get companies, they're very active in getting local companies to come in and do presentations. And I think they're really beneficial to go to because you get a gauge of what they're looking for. And it goes back to what I was saying previously. I mean, you might meet somebody there that's involved in the hiring process. And when your CV hits the desk, they can put a name to the face. And I think that's really important when you're doing that sort of thing, is that personal touch. It's all about meeting people and connecting with people. So I would say get out and network as much as possible and take as much sort of what would I say? Take as much use of the events that go on, get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. And I think we recognize it's difficult, isn't it? When you're at university, when you're a student, you're busy with the academic stuff. You might have a part-time job or whatever. There can be a lot going on. You're kind of trying to manage all those different priorities. But that kind of with you, for example, volunteering for the Leaver survey, just that can create that opportunity to network, and to kind of meet new people, to get a bit more information about things. And again, I'm sure that was really useful for you to have that on your CV and to be able to talk about that at
Absolutely.
future
It helped me
interviews and
through the
things.
interview process. Great. I mean, it was such a good thing to be able to speak about the fact that that the university has seen you as a student that they can employ. So that demonstrates to them that you're a good student, because they wouldn't employ somebody that was a good student. And just again, I mean, that was speaking to people, that job. So I mean, it's a tough job doing phone sales sort of thing. It's not sales, but you're phoning someone up and trying to get them to answer a survey. I mean, that teaches you a skill in itself, doing that. And again, it's about speaking to people, communication. I keep going back to it and just how important it is.
Yeah, yeah, and all of that prepares you for the process of interviews, and then for getting used to the kind of workplace culture and all of that. It's really preparing you for the world of work. So really useful. We would always, I think, encourage students to do kind of volunteering, to get any kind of experience that you can. That is all really useful for your employability. So from the point of view where you're at now, so how long have you been working in the current post?
This would be coming up to my third year, fourth year in June, I think it is. I'll be with
Yeah.
Peterson, so it'll be, yeah, 5 years since I've graduated now, which seems like only yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure. And what would be your reflections then on kind of where you're at now, between graduating and where you're at now? What's the kind of main lessons that you've taken away around that kind of transition? What would be useful for students to know, do you think, about what you've learned in that time?
I think you've got to be resilient, and you've not got to take things personally. You're going to face setbacks throughout the period, but if you keep doing the right things day after day, it will eventually turn around. You're not going to just walk into a graduate job. You're going to face rejection, but I think it's really important that you don't take it personally. You have to just get on to the next one, and not linger and think about, oh, wish I'd got that job, because the next one, I mean, I mean, I was in despair about a few of them. I got down to the final stages with a couple of the big oil companies in Aberdeen, and I thought that was meant to be my job. But the next job that comes around the corner, it will work out. And I mean, I think I'm in a better position now than I would have been had I got that job. So what I would say is, what's for you won't go past you, sort of thing. So just keep, if it seems tough, just keep going, because the right thing will come along eventually.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And we recognize, I think, at the moment it can be challenging. It's not easy. Um, it's probably not going to happen first time for you with the first application that you put out there. You do need to have that resilience to keep going and to keep kind of, I suppose, adapting and tailoring your kind of applications as you move forward as well. And we always say as well about, I mean, rejection is always disappointing, of course, but there's an opportunity there as well, isn't there, to learn from that. I mean, I would always say to people, if you've had an interview and it's not been successful, try and get feedback from the employer about that interview, and that can be really useful in kind of gaining information about what you can improve on about your performance, that kind of thing. And they won't always give you feedback, but that can be really useful to do that. Was that something that you found throughout that process? You just kind of had to keep learning and adapting as you went through it?
Yeah, you do, and unfortunately, the way it is with certainly if you're applying for large corporations, you won't get feedback. That is the reality of the situation. But again, like you say, if it's a smaller company, they're quite often happy to give you feedback and do that. So I would encourage that as well. But I would just say, yeah, you've just got to push on and keep going, and it will come around. And you've got to be flexible as well. I would say that it's really important. Don't set it as I have to work for this company, because I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you do that, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and it's not the be all and end all. Although it might seem it is, I would certainly be flexible to working at different places, because it might lead back to that place. Or you might find, oh,
Mhm.
actually, this company is great, and you end up going down a different path. But you've got, like you said, Rob, you've got to be flexible and willing to go in open-minded. I mean, I certainly didn't see myself working in the parcel industry all my life, but it has shaped me into where I want to be now. So it's kind of got me on the next part of my journey to wherever I might end up. I don't know. I'll stay at Peterson for another few years. I might change. I just don't know. I've got to be open-minded to what opportunities come along.
Yeah, and as you're doing that, even working in different sectors, doing different things, you're developing that network as well, aren't you? You're building a professional kind of network that you continue to kind of develop and use over the years. That can be really useful also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, listen, Sam, thanks very much. That's been so interesting. You've had a very interesting career path, obviously, but a really good insight into, how you can make the most of your time at university. Just do things that maybe set you apart from the crowd. Um,
Yeah.
how you can go down, perhaps one kind of path, and then realize it's maybe not quite for you and make that transition. And I think what really comes through for me is just as you said, the importance of resilience, just to keep going, to not be discouraged. And you're certainly, evidence that can pay dividends in the end. So thank you so much for that insight. Really
You're
useful.
welcome. You're
And
welcome.
just wish you all the best in your continued career.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate your
Okay.
time.
Okay. Thanks, Sam.